Hello, podcast listener. I was going to have some quippy thing. You know you're listening to JJ Meets World. And if this is your first one ever, welcome. Enjoy this episode. Tucker and I are going to talk about a lot of stuff. KFC. We're going to talk about concerts. We're even going to talk about ticket prices. And I know that this is usually a little more clever than this, but I've already messed up like 4 recordings. So let's just get this thing going.
And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Hooey, Tucker, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's start with last night.
Yeah.
Let's talk about with your Ben Folds concert experience.
Our Ben Folds concert experience.
Well, but I want to hear more about yours.
Sure, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'll definitely throw in my 2 cents because I was trying to think about this. Have we ever been to a concert before?
Don't believe so. I mean, I'm just thinking of the concert stories you have, but they're all with Phil.
Yeah.
For the most part. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a show with you.
No.
So that was the first one.
Not even an orchestra or like a symphonic performance.
Well, I mean, we're not going to count Avenue Q, right, in Vegas.
I mean, we probably should.
That would be,
yeah.
So a theater show, but we're talking a concert.
Yeah, concert.
Right? Live concert.
We're talking about holding a beer, possible wave. I was waiting the whole night to see the wave.
Smelling weed every once in a while.
Every once in a while. There were a lot of open-toed sandals.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think that concerts and open-toed sandals go hand in hand.
A lot of polite head bobbing to the music.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, let's set the scene here. So we've talked about on the podcast before that you were very excited because you are in the radio industry, we call it a P1 listener.
Oh.
You are a P1 Ben Folds fan.
Sure, but you know what? I think last night kind of redefined for me a little bit in my head where my fandom really, really does sit.
Okay.
Which is mostly with Ben Folds 5, the original group, and then some of his solo work shortly after leaving the group. And then I still follow a bit, but it hasn't been the same thing for me. His music hasn't hit the same, so I haven't been following it.
Could you give us the Cliff Notes version of what Ben Folds, like the evolution of that, his artistry?
I mean, he was in the band Ben Folds 5, which they called it that because they sounded better than Ben Folds 3, because there's actually only 3 members of the band. Yeah, I mean, they were, mid to late 90s kind of was when they mostly operated out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And had some radio hits. The big one was Brick, that everyone probably in our listenership is probably aware of. That was the first song of theirs I'd actually heard on the radio, and I thought it was pretty. But I became obsessed with them, I want to say the summer of 98 or 99. My first June session at Trollwood was taking a writing class with our friend, previous podcast guest, Tim Larson. And we were in the Hog Barn. If you are a Trollwood alum, you know what I'm talking about.
Which was an old hog barn that they retrofitted into a classroom.
And it's one of the buildings that still stands at the location. And there was a piano in there, and I walked in, and he was playing a little piece of a song called Evaporated. It was very pretty. And I was like, what is that song? And he said, it's Evaporated by Ben Folds 5. And it moved me enough that I went to Media Play later that day.
Shout out to Media Play.
And I bought
Replay Rewards.
I bought Whatever and Ever, Amen, and the unauthorized biography of Reinhold Messner, their 2nd and 4th albums, and went home and put it in my CD player and fell in love. Absolutely fell in love. Couldn't tell you why at the moment. It grabbed me. The music really, really grabbed me, and that became my band. And so I was obsessed, like all of us as teenagers, we all have music or something that we suddenly latch onto as like part of our identity. I'm sure you had something that you were like, okay, this is my group or this is my thing, right? Ben Folds 5 became my thing. And then I think within a year after I became a fan of theirs, they broke up. And the hints were there because I saw them play on Saturday Night Live and they were playing Brick. And I just remember watching them play and thinking, that looks like a band that's about to break up. But I just was like, nah, they're just playing a sad song. That's all they're doing. And then they broke up like a few months later. And so then, Ben had done some side solo work prior to that, but decides to do a solo career because he was sort of the moving force behind their songwriting, right? He was the lead singer, the piano player, and basically the head writer. Darren Jesse, the drummer, and Robert Sledge, the bassist, are amazing musicians, but like Ben is kind of a maestro and a master. He really is masterful at what he can do. And so he starts a solo career, and his first solo album is Rockin' the Suburbs, the CD of which I pre-ordered at Media Play, and then was released on September 11th, 2001. That was the release date.
Ooh.
Right? And if we all remember the events of that day, I don't believe any of us have forgotten.
Nope.
That was a rough day. And that was the first day I knew what the World Trade Center even was, because I was pretty checked out as a kid. I wasn't paying attention to most global news, but I had sat through the school day where every classroom just had the TV on the cart showing us what was going on.
You obviously were not a huge fan of Superman 2 because they had a lot of World Trade Center footage at the very beginning of that. In fact, I believe so much that Warner Brothers said, to make money off of this movie, we have to sell this footage to other people who need New York City skyline footage.
Yep. I think and this was the time where we were waiting for the new Spider-Man movie to come out.
Yep.
Because the teaser had come out with it between the World Trade Center.
Right. He puts a web between it. It's a brilliant teaser.
Yeah.
A brilliant teaser that immediately had to get pulled.
Yeah. And so I was kind of worried, like, they were closing down places. They closed down the mall that day because they didn't know. They were like, we have no idea what is or is not a target and what is or is not in good taste to go do. But I had a CD waiting for me at Media Play. So I went there, got my CD, went home, listened to Rockin' the Suburbs. Beautiful album, but immediately I could tell this is very different than when he's collaborating with Robert and Darren.
Rockin' the Suburbs is my favorite Ben Folds song.
It's an awesome album, and it's a great song, and it's a great music video directed by Weird Al.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
really?
Weird Al. He's even in it because they have that scene where Ben is playing a producer and Weird Al is playing a producer, and the lead singer from Cake, I'm forgetting his name, they're in the studio listening to the multiple Bens play because Ben played every instrument on that album. And they're like, this isn't good. And then Weird Al goes, I know what to do. And there's a dial in front of him that says suck. And he turns it down and he turns up the dial that says rock. And they go, yes. And that was a parody of like all the white male rage music that was coming out at that time. So it's parodying Limp Bizkit and like new metal stuff and other things like that. And so then he kept making stuff after that, which was always really pretty because he's a beautiful songwriter, but nothing really hit me in the teenage feels the way Ben Folds 5 music did. And so, I kind of trailed off as a fan, always sort of paying attention to what he was up to, but never saw him in concert. He had come to Fargo at least once at one point.
We all reminisced about the Playmakers show.
Big thing. I missed that one. I did not go to that one. So when they announced this February that Ben Folds was coming to town, I'm like, hey, it's been more than 22 years since the band broke up. They had since reunited at one point, did an album, and he's still doing his solo stuff. They did some stuff with the Muppets at one point. They did a bunch of other things. And I thought, let's do this. So I bought a ticket, and last night I ran into you and about 20 other people that many of whom I had not seen since I graduated high school. And they were all like, we figured you would be here. And so I had a blast meeting up with people, but I gotta say, man, the concert itself, and I hate giving Ben a bad review, but it was kind of a wet blanket.
So let's talk about the ticket price to begin with. $39.95 to buy the ticket, then a $10 fee, then a $2 fee on top of that. So $51 a ticket, which is insane to me. Like $51 for a ticket, $40 for the ticket. I would pay that in a second, right? That $39.95, absolutely. But getting hit with that ticket fee really is a kick to my junk.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's taken to the point of where like our elected leaders are taking a look at this and being like, you know what? We need to do something about this.
Just be upfront with the actual prices.
Yeah.
Just be upfront with the actual price.
If you wanted to tell me the ticket fee cost to go to this show was $51, I would gladly pay that. But when I find out that I'm getting $10 per ticket.
Yeah.
Like as a fee. So what if you bought 5 tickets? You just paid an extra $50 for that?
Yeah, no.
Ridiculous.
What do you pay for like a Dave concert?
I don't know, because Phil Lund handles all of our tickets, because he is a part of some kind of underground Dave Matthews like world where people are constant. I guess like when you join the Dave Matthews like fan club that you pay to get into, you get a certain amount of tickets for the year, but you don't get to choose what they're for, so they just give it to you. So people are bartering and, you know, saying like, listen, I rented a cottage and this, but I can't go to this concert. Does anyone want to give me gorge tickets, and then I'll do this, and then I'll charge you like 10% of the fee for.
Then you get like a conch shell necklace in the mail or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you get a poster of like a bear that's sitting in a mug of hot chocolate, and only you know what that means.
It's really unfair to Dave that my experience with him is douchebags at parties pulling out a guitar to impress girls and playing Dave Matthews.
Right. I think John Mayer, to some extent, too, also suffers from that.
Yeah.
So it's at the Fargo Brewing Company, which, if you're outside of our area, is a brewery. In fact, the first beer brewery in Fargo that really had staying power.
I love that location. I really do. I enjoy going there.
They have it in their parking lot, and so they put up it's like a full-size stage, and they had seating for probably 15 rows tops.
Something like that.
And then they had what they called boxcar, because it's alongside railroad tracks, but it was elevated seating to one side. Now, I made the mention that like it's just a chain link fence with some like blackout fabric. Mm-hmm. So if I got a pair of stilts, I could have stood on the public sidewalk and watched this concert for free.
Yep.
And really, you could have sat there and you would have gotten the concert experience by listening to what's going on.
Pretty much the one that we got, because we were pretty far back.
Yeah, you just can't have beer out there.
Right.
And it was a warm night in Fargo, North Dakota. I feel like it's a mistake, but you have to put this on the west end of the parking lot. So the setting sun blinds you as you're trying to watch part of this thing. And then at one point you're like, why do they have lights?
Right. I also, we didn't hear a train until the concert was over.
Right.
But was that just luck of the timing?
I think it was.
Because otherwise it's like, every once in a while a train might come through and you just have to kind of power through it.
I think I've heard of a couple people who've booked events at Fargo Brewing, and they'll be in the middle of like a dad speech, be like, my little girl is finally going off with a man, and I couldn't be more happy that it's Jacob. And that's why I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
Isn't like at what point are they allowed to hit the horn again? Because I thought when you go through this section of town, you're not supposed to.
Okay, I was always told that in the city of Fargo we have a no whistle zone now.
That's what I thought,
and so that they get fined if they do the whistle.
Okay.
I've also heard that you're only allowed to go like 15 miles per hour through the city, but I've seen trains that are going way faster than that. So, but let's get into trains for just 1 second.
Sure.
We'll get back to the concert.
Talk about some fucking trains.
So, the train industry has a stranglehold on the United States, not our government, not our people, the entire country, because we gave them eminent domain for X amount of feet beyond the track on either side. So you take a place like downtown Fargo, you have to get the blessing from the train czar to be able to do something. So they tore down that McDonald's, right?
Yep.
And the train people at like BNSF were like, nothing shall be built in this lot henceforth.
Ooh.
So whatever deal they made in the 70s to put up that McDonald's, they decided they do not want that.
Got it.
We're taking it back.
Gotcha.
I don't understand, like, I don't get, like, and I don't want a train going through downtown Fargo. Right. It disrupts traffic. It's crappy. We've had so many deaths related to like people being, inebriated or choosing to take their own life in front of a train track there. We should move this train so that it goes north of the town. And here's the thing. At this point, it would probably cost something like $80 million.
That's it?
Well, I think just to like get the land that they would need, and you'd have to force it onto farmers, you'd have to force it onto landowners and be like, listen, I know you've had this land for a long time, but we're going to give the train some of it.
Yeah, if anything, you'd have to maybe make an underpass or something just to get around the train.
Okay, would it be possible to just dig down Okay, so how high is a train? Probably 25 feet.
I have no idea. All my number estimates, by the way, in this episode, we should really take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Because I'm so bad at my number estimates.
Let's say a train is 25 feet tall, which might be aggressive, but I mean that's 4 me high.
Sure.
That might be a train.
That might be a train.
So what if we just dug a trench that was 30 feet down?
Oh, okay.
And then we just had the train like go underneath us. And then you could have little bridges like where you need sidewalks that, so you're good to go.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, they don't, the BNSF trains that come through, they don't look as like flexible and agile as like a subway car train
Oh,
is.
true.
So I wonder like if it would even need a certain amount of gradation.
Sure.
That would probably have to start on the outside of the town. And then even then, like, I bet that's way more expensive is to dig like a giant tunnel for it to go through than to just reroute the track.
Do you think so? Because we built the Panama Canal.
Well, we didn't do that. You and I didn't do that.
Right. I'm not saying
City of Fargo didn't do that.
I'm not going to dig the
I
trench.
believe we threw a bunch of human suffering at that problem to get
but
that
I mean,
done.
like, think about like there are towns that have like figured out a way to like do. There must be a trenching machine. What about like the channel?
Right. Well,
Right?
like Fargo Moorhead is one of those communities that got here because of the train in the first place, right? So it grew up on either side of the train. So if anything, we should blame the forefathers for their shitty city planning. Like, okay, the train is here, build everything south or north of it, right?
I don't know if you ever listened to any of the Kepler radio play series that have been on the JJ Meets World podcast.
I've listened to a couple of them.
Did you listen? I think it's the most recent one where it's the history of the town of Kepler.
I don't think I listened to that one.
We wrote in an amazing storyline where it's 2 brothers, the Kepler brothers, Max and Klaus, who were Germans who had moved to America, fought in the Civil War, and then came up here to like, own farmland and prosper. And one of them was a drunk and the other one was a control freak. And the drunk was in charge of bribing the men from the railroad so that out of Minneapolis, they would bring the railroad through Kepler and put them on the map. And he is hungover and forgets to go. And so people from Fargo end up whining and dining and essentially bribing these guys. And so that's why Fargo gets established. Writing that was like just an absolute dream because I'm like, that's what happened back in the day. Have you ever noticed how the train runs in North Dakota? You get to Fargo and then you go up to Grand Forks and then you go across the top over to like Minot and then hit Williston and then you go across to into Montana. There's no train like passenger rail that goes into the capital of this state.
I have never ridden the train around here, so I've never even because that's like a 1 a.m, 2 a.m. start time.
It is
or
pretty
debark
awful.
time. But at least with the concert last night, we didn't get a train engine until the concert was completely over, almost like to the second.
Yeah.
And then it came through, and then fireworks happened in someone's yard.
Yeah, someone was lighting off. But in fact, my theory is that it was Ben Folds himself lighting off fireworks.
But before he lit off the fireworks, he had to explain what the fireworks meant. And it's like, okay, so let's get back to the concert a little bit. So, this is hard for me to say just because I do love the guy and his music has meant a lot to me. He was touring to promote his new album.
Which we did not know when we bought tickets.
Yeah. And so I still would have gone.
Yeah.
Because I knew he would probably play some of his other hits, but he did some of his solo hits, just a couple of them. But, obviously, what would have really hit me in the feels would have been some covers of Ben Folds 5 stuff, but I get it. But the thing is that, JJ, you have produced so many different shows.
Oh, yes.
Do you start with slow, sappy music that puts you to sleep? And then before every song, do you tell the artist to give the audience a deep explanation of what the song even means so they can kind of understand what it is that's going on?
In fact, I will even do you one better, that the fact that I've seen a lot of stage musicals, right? And any producer of a Broadway musical will tell you, you need a massive opening number that's going to get the people hooked and get them into what's going on. And they do a sad ballad at the beginning of the show Beetlejuice. And then Beetlejuice comes forward and he calls out, he goes, got a ballad at the beginning. This is the worst. Let's change it up. And then they like do this kind of rock version of what
Ben should have seen Beetlejuice
He should
before curating the set list.
I also think Was there not a single member of his creative team who said, hey, listen, this is not the way to hook a bunch of people and maybe know where you're going, right? Like, this is a parking lot outdoor summer event.
Right.
I understand wanting to promote your new album. And there were, like, Exhausting Lover. I had never heard that track. It's off the new album. I liked it. But it is not the way to, you should start with Rock in the Suburbs.
Yeah.
You should start with, even like Tom and Mary would be a great song where it's just got a lot of like boom. And you get people like who are dancing and jiving. This set a tone at the very beginning that felt more like a church service than a concert.
Yep. Let me just thank you all for being here today. Let me give you some stuff I've been working on. This one is about, I don't know, like I made the comment to you guys that he's kind of the Stephen King of writing songs these days, because it is like, oh, well, I've got this Pepsi can here. And he would say this. He'd say, is there a song in that? I don't know. Maybe there's a song in that. And that's part of what makes him brilliant. I mean, he really can write music about pretty much anything. And so he is a phenomenal songwriter, but he's also at that stage in his craft where you can tell he's bored with his own stuff. And so he's just kind of going wherever he can find even a little bit of a song. And I appreciate that. But put that on the album. But to get me to want to listen to the album, I need to have a good feeling and a good time at that show. But at the same time, it was really cool to see him live. When he walked on stage, I had a little flutter in my chest, but we were so far back, it was hard to see. I think the thing that I really dug the most was his piano playing is so distinctively Ben Folds' piano playing. Hearing that live was what made me go, oh, that is him, right? I could see it was him. Hearing him play the piano, like he even said, hey, everyone, and boom, hit the keys really hard. And that's something he's known for is treating the piano like a drum set, like a percussion instrument. That was part of the Ben Folds 5 sound all the time, was that they would have like different breakdowns in a song and he would just start banging on it. And he was known for ending the concert by picking up his stool and throwing it on the keys. And it became like a crowd thing where everyone was like, fucking do it, yeah! And he would make it bigger and bigger and bigger. He's also done crowd work before. Like he can do some of the most impressive crowd work where he will write a song with like an orchestra and the audience right there. He'll be like, give me a key, give me an opening word, and then he'll compose a song right there with a full symphony. So he's a brilliant musician. He can do some amazing stuff. But it felt like we kind of got him at not even half speed, at kind of a third speed. It felt like, let's get in here, promote the album, get the F out, boys. Like that kind of felt like what it was like.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. And even with like,
I don't know why I censored myself just there. I've said fuck a few times in this episode already.
Did you notice how his encore went? Like, so they're like, dude, there you go. And he literally walks to the end of the stage and then just walks back. Like there was no, you got to cheer for me. You got to come on. The simple niceties that we have in a concert venue of like pleading to get someone back for an encore.
So I didn't notice any of that because halfway through the concert, I realized you and Jill weren't standing with us anymore. Mm-hmm. And I made a comment to other friends. I was like, oh, did they just Irish goodbye us?
Which, by the way, you said that was halfway through the concert.
Yeah.
That was 4 songs in.
Was that 4 songs in?
4 songs in was halfway through the concert.
I think it was 3 songs later that, or a song or 2 later that like I noticed you guys weren't there. Uh-huh. So I turn around and I see you talking to someone. So I'm like, I'm going to go talk to JJ real quick. I ended up just spending the rest of the concert talking with you guys and not paying attention. And then like there was an applause and then you said, well, that's it. And I went, what? The show's over? I had like just lost track. I wasn't paying attention to the music. I didn't realize an encore had happened. Right. And so for me to not realize it is, I think it's kind of a telling sign. Like my first time seeing the guy live and it was almost like I couldn't be bothered.
There was a 7:00 opener who played until I think like 7, somewhere between 7:30 and 7:45. Is that what it was?
I think it was called Twin Heights.
And the concert itself was wrapped by like 9:10.
Well, so that was a crowd of people who's like, hey, like we got kids at home. Like I'd like to wrap this, be in bed by 10 for the most part.
I'm going to disagree with you there because I think these are people like, listen, I got a babysitter. Because do you notice how many people hung out even like after the concert was done? No one was in a rush to get out of there.
Sure, that's true.
Even like the America Hat couple, which
you fixated on pretty quickly.
I did. Well, because I think that they were probably there to meet up with another couple for some lovemaking. And that's what they did is they said, we're going to wear, because I watched them walk in And then I watched them at the end, and they were really looking around. And then when they finally walked out, they seemed disappointed.
Where's another couple we were gonna fuck?
Right. It was like, it's like, we'll meet you at the concert.
We'll be wearing
hats that look like the American flag, and you guys wear hats that have Uncle Sam on it, and that's how we'll know how to find you in this sea of people before we get all sweaty.
I think a lot of people who were there just are like, oh, what's going on over here? Is there a concert? Hey, let's go.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of the crowd was too.
So how my friend Emily ended up there, right?
Yeah.
We were chatting with her.
I remember getting wanded down as we're going in, and I'm like, guys, there's not a lot of gunplay at a Ben Folds concert. If anyone here has a gun, they are a responsible gun owner who probably locked it up at home.
If anything, you probably have to be afraid of like somebody coming to this thing and like not wearing any deodorant.
Speaking of what,
that's the weapon of choice.
Speaking of the line getting on, I need to ask you about this. So just the other day, thank you for inviting me on your KFGO show with Amy. I had a lot of fun doing that.
We do a segment called Seat Yourself where we invite like a friend over and we just have lunch with them and we record it and wherever the conversation goes.
Yeah.
So Tucker's long been on my list of people to invite. And recently you've had your lunch hour free and I'm like, this is a perfect time. I am sorry that the lunch was so lacking.
Honestly, the company was so awesome. Okay. So like I was totally fine with it.
We had cafeteria lunch at a place that technically doesn't have a cafeteria, so that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
It was. Do you know what I figured out? That was steamed pizza. That's how they cooked it. They steamed it.
Well, at least you got an extra pepperoni.
I did on the bottom.
But in that, Amy and I really bonded over our friendship with you, and we were comparing notes. And she brought up the fact that JJ really loves standing in a line because he loves to talk with whoever is there. Well, last night, first thing I see is Jill. I'm like, hey, Jill, where's your significant other? She goes, oh, he's still in line. He got in trouble for talking about Indiana Jones. So I want to know what actually went down. What happened that got you in trouble in the line talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
Okay, first of all, let's talk about the poor line management that was taking place. So to get into this venue, you are walking in off of the public sidewalk. But you can approach that sidewalk just like all sidewalks from either direction. So we were coming from the east heading west, and we had to actually pass the venue and go around and get in the line rather than just turning and going in because there was open ticket lines and they're like, no, you got to go over there. And what I didn't realize was, so you have to get further down the line and go through 2 checkpoints before you can even present your ticket to get scanned in. Checkpoint 1, they want to see your ID. Nobody's saying it. And so I get up there and I'm engaged in a conversation with Reed Strand, who's just in front of me. And I had just bumped into Reed at a screening of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where I think he was dressed up as Belloc, who is the white suited villain in the first Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he won a piece of trivia. And so I was congratulating him on his trivia. And he was asking me, like, what did you think? And, the new Indiana Jones, what do you think? And so we were just having a conversation. And I get to the first checkpoint and I put my arms out because I think this is where they're going to wand me. And the guy goes, ID. And I'm not giving away any spoilers to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, so I don't know why he was so aggressive about it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I open my wallet, and I have to get my ID out, and I show it to him. He doesn't even bother, looking at it, and then he stamps my hand, right? I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. So then I walk forward, and I'm about to be wanded, and she goes, do you have anything in your pockets? And I said, yes. And she goes, what? And I go, and then Reed is still talking to me. And so I'm still trying to talk to him because in all honesty, I don't need to have a conversation with the person who's wanding me. Sure. Right? There's nothing back and forth. Unless you tell me I'm about to touch your genitals because I think you might be packing a Glock.
I don't know. I honestly, when I'm in a line like that, I become submissive and conversational with the person doing it. I'm very nice because it's always gotten me through TSA like that.
But this is not the TSA.
Yeah, but
this is someone whose sole power exists in a magnetic wand that they have in their hand. And so I go, so I take everything out of my pockets and she goes, put your arms out. And so I put my arms out and she wands me and then I start walking and she goes, hey, stop. And I turn around and I go, what? And she goes, I got to do the back. So I have to walk back 4 steps, and I'm still talking to Reed, mind you. And I finally go, Reed, I'll talk to you inside. Clearly I am not following instructions. And then I realized my wife isn't there, right? And so then she wands the back and she doesn't say anything. And so I turn around and I go, am I good? And she goes, yeah. So I was a bit perturbed. And I've got to say this. I've been at several concerts run by this organization where they clearly don't know how to run a line. Mm-hmm. I've been where they're not being direct. Like, I remember waiting in a line for like 10 minutes to get into Blue Stem once, and then finding out that they're making us go to the back of the line because this was the line that you couldn't have a bag in, and Jill had a purse. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and so I went back and I'm like, there's no signage. And they're like, that guy out there is supposed to tell you. And I was like, well, your other employee didn't tell.
Yell at him.
You know, or how about this? Whatever you're paying him, you could get a nice chloroplast like signage that says bags, no bags. And then you don't have to pay an hourly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go on a little tirade here because I had a bad experience.
Oh, now you're going to start one?
Well, this is my thing. This is an unpopular opinion, but I don't believe that every job deserves $20 an hour. And this is why.
Well, minimum wage isn't $20 an hour.
No, but that's the whole point. Is we want to push it to that, right? I believe in a livable wage. I truly do. But I also believe in doing your job to earn that thing. No matter what your job is and what you're compensated at, you are choosing to go to that place for what they've asked you to do, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are putting in $2 worth of hour. $2 an hour, and that's like the effort they're putting into their job. And that's what I think sucks, is that one person who does not pull their weight in their position sets everyone else back. For example, I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I was wondering if this was going to come up because I was figuring a strongly worded letter was going to happen in the story at some point.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken on Friday because you know what? Every now and then I want a Colonel's Crispy Strips. Every now and then. And I know that they're going to give me the
time
Rhea.
to time. Yep. I like to taste the finer things in life.
Right. So I go, and here's a pro tip. If you download the KFC app, they have specials that you can get that are not available in store or through their drive-thru. So I found a meal that was going to give me 8 pieces of chicken, 8 Colonel's Crispy Strips, something called Colonel's Fries, which I guess are French fries that have the 11 herbs and spices on them.
Probably seasoned, yeah.
Coleslaw and mashed potatoes and gravy, right? So you get, it was meant for a family, but I was going to get it just for myself. So I ordered this, and they said it's going to be ready in 20 minutes. Stop on by 6:47. And I'm like, you got it. Moorhead, Minnesota on 8th Street, KFC. I get there at 6:50, being like, they've had ample time for this. So I walk in, and the woman, there's no one's ever, in the 4 times I've ever been to that KFC, no one's ever behind the desk. You always have to go up and be like, hello. And so this woman came out and she goes, can I help you? And I said, I've got an order for pickup. It's under Gordon. And she goes, Hunter Gordon. 1 second. Do we have an order for Hunter Gordon? I said, it's JJ. And she goes, what? And I said, JJ Gordon. She goes, but you said your name was Hunter. And I said it was under. And since I started on the radio, I have definitely downed my hearing because I'm wearing headphones all the time. So I know that I talk louder than I need to speak. But maybe the sound of the chicken fryers are too much in the back. I don't know.
She's watching a lot of Fox News about Hunter Biden, and it just crossed over.
Just really thinking it. She goes, let me check on that for you. And then she never comes back. So I sit in a booth and I'm waiting, and they have a setup made to pick up orders, right? That says delivery pickup. And again, the 4 times I've ever been there, they never put an order in there. Like, I've never walked in like, oh, there's my delicious meal that I waited for. So I sit down, and I should also mention the last time I went there, I was sitting waiting for my order, and she goes, to go order, and a guy got up and grabbed it. And I thought, oh, okay, so that must be that guy's order. And I'm waiting 5 more minutes, and she says, what are you waiting for? I was like, oh, I've got a pickup order for JJ Gordon. She's like, you already picked it up. I said, no, I didn't. And then she points at the guy who's eating the stuff out of the boxes, and she thought it was appropriate to just have him bring the bag up and then hand it to me. And I was like, nope. And he's like, I only ate 2 biscuits. And he was really apologetic, but I could tell that he's worked this scam before where whoever just says, listen, who's available, like I'll just go and grab whatever food if no one jumps at it right away.
Yep.
And it's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And not that I want KFC checking my ID to confirm it's me.
Although leave the restaurant then with it. Don't stay there and eat it. Like take the goods and go.
Bingo, right? So, but maybe he's really hungry. I don't know. He started on biscuits. So I made them make me a new order that previous time. Yeah. Because I'm like, I don't know where his hands have been or what he's touched in this thing. What if he's the KFC killer and he's injecting the chicken with strychnine and I'm going to be the next victim? These are all things that could really happen. So in this case, it takes forever. And finally some dude comes up and he goes, hey, are you Hunter? And I said, no. But is that for JJ Gordon? And he looks at the bag and goes, oh, yeah. And so he hands me the bag and I leave. And every piece of my instinct was like, open this chicken, find out, make sure it's good to go. Yep. But I didn't. I get home and my wife has decided that she's going to have a sandwich at home. And I have picked up chicken for me, like, because she hates it. She thinks it's greasy and disgusting. And I'm like, that's the thing I like about it. So I open it up and I'm like, oh, 8-piece chicken, original recipe. Oh, Colonel's crispy strips. There are those buttery biscuits. Oh, it's the coleslaw. It's so cold and creamy. Here's the mashed potatoes. They didn't include the gravy, which I literally put on everything. I dipped the chicken strips in it. I put it into the coleslaw to make it tangy. I dipped the biscuits in it. And so I call the restaurant and nobody answers. So I get an email immediately from KFC that says, how was your meal?
Oh, there you go. They opened the gate.
Right. And so I gave it a 0. And I said they were missing the gravy, which was the absolute most important thing to include in this bag. And then I went further to say, like, and this isn't the first time I've had a problem with this location. Then I get a call and they said, this is the Moorhead KFC corporate just sent us. We're so sorry. Could you come back and get the gravy now? And I said, okay, I'll come back and get it. And they're like, but we close in 5 minutes.
Oh, my God.
And I said, I can't make it there in 5 minutes. That would be impossible. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. How about if we send you a coupon good for a free gravy the next time you come? And I said, I was honestly at this point, I was like, I will not be the man who somebody has to mail a free gravy coupon to because he's upset that his meal. I said, I'm going to choke this down, but I am never coming back to your KFC location again. They said, we're so sorry. We don't want to lose a good customer like you. So I figured, like, I'm talking to them back and forth, and I realized it's been 6 minutes on this conversation. You didn't close in 5 minutes. You're a liar. You're still there. You could have kept the lights on for me.
I'm trying to, like, what I would feel so...
And yes, this is about gravy.
I would feel so depressed, though, being the guy waiting at home for my gravy slip to come in the mail. Like, any day now.
Like, every day I, like, run to the mailbox and be like, oh, where's
is it here yet? No, it's not here yet.
And it reminds me of, I think this is the big issue. For so many years, we have worked on perfecting a restaurant model where you go there and eat. So KFC was a sit-down restaurant for a long time. And then they started doing takeout where you could come and get your bucket of chicken and go home. Then they decided we're going to add a drive-through to this. And now we're in this weird situation where I'm ordering it online. I'm not actually talking to a human being. So I can't impress upon them with and make sure there's gravy in the bag.
Right.
And not loose. Put the gravy in a container.
Right.
I don't want to dip out of the bag.
We're living in a period of time where you can see that these jobs are going to be replaced by AI, and that part of me kind of goes, well, that's good but in fast food restaurants' defense, though, I should say, in North Fargo on 19th Avenue, I'm very proud of how well the McDonald's has been doing up there.
Yeah, they're doing great.
They're doing a great job because Burger King up there is an absolute shit show.
Oh, it's a dumpster fire.
Every time I go there, the first thing they say in the intercom is, okay, so here's what we don't have. We don't have any of the big burgers. I've heard that a couple of times. Like, what does that even mean? The big burgers? Anything that's not a cheeseburger. Like, we don't have that. We don't have this. And they'll be like, it's just me here. I'm like, I see one other person and you guys are just standing there, right? So no, it's all kind of falling apart at the seams a little bit.
I have a theory that whatever material they use to build a Burger King degrades the parking lot around it. Like whatever it sheds off works against concrete. And so that's why every Burger King you go to, there are giant potholes that surround it.
Let's bring this back, though, to the Ben Folds concert, because you were telling me a little bit about KFC at Ben Folds concert. And I made the observation that, you know, JJ, you look like you're about to bribe Nedry on Costa Rica for the DNA at Jurassic Park. And you looked very handsome.
Thank you.
You were dressed very, very well.
Thank you.
You had a really nice hat, sunglasses. What is that kind of white shirt called?
It is called a seersucker.
That's what I
pattern.
thought. I didn't want to say it incorrectly. So it's a seersucker. It looked very comfy, very breezy. Is it made of cotton?
Yeah. No, you know, I don't actually know what seersucker. It feels kind of paper-like when you touch it, but it's still cloth and it's, you know, dippled all over. It's great. It's the type of thing where they make seersucker suits. And I've always wanted one because then I could run for the mayor of New Orleans.
I got it. You were wearing some lime green shorts.
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to what kicks you were wearing that day. Probably just your standard shoes.
New Balance. Okay. But actually, I made a joke that my wife really liked. I'm like, yeah, but I've had these so long, they're actually Old Balance.
God damn it. I'm surprised that Jill liked that joke.
She did. I think because like I was real snappy on it. Like there was no like... She didn't see the wheels turning before I was able to do it. Now, one good compliment deserves another. You bought an entirely new ensemble for it.
I bought a new shirt and new shorts.
Lovely.
That was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself today. And so I went to Target Boutique and got some Goodfellow.
Because we love Goodfellow.
Love Goodfellow.
I'm wearing 2 Goodfellow items today.
I'm wearing it. You know what? I think these socks are Goodfellow socks as well. My shoes might be Goodfellow shoes. I love Goodfellow.
They're so good. I really, they should sponsor JJ Meets World as a podcast.
You know, when I was at Target Boutique, though, I was also like, you know, you guys got to stop selling all these printed shirts with like the latest pop culture thing of the day.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't want any of that shit anymore. I just want, you know, like the few graphic shirts that I've got were ones that were given to me as like a present. But beyond that, I'm at that age where I'm like, no, I just want some solid colors, maybe a nice pattern.
I thought about this week.
A lot of V-neck too, because I like to show the sizzle now.
Yeah, you do love a good V, a deep V.
I'm at the age as well where you got to show off like, yes, I am a man.
Yeah.
I have chest hair.
You know, the interesting thing about V-neck is it gives you interesting sunburns.
It does.
You know?
Really does.
It gives you a sunburn that is like, oh, are you General Zod?
Yeah, especially when you're an Irish kid.
So this week we had at work, we started talking about television and advertising jingles and what the best jingle is. And so we do brackets every now and then. So we have people submit what's your favorite. We take the top 8 and then we whittle them down throughout the day. So we've done it with soup, candy bars, Christmas songs. Nefla soup won, by the way, so you can tell we're in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay, sure.
Beat chicken noodle. I was like, there's no way Big Chicken is going to let that stand. But... So we decided, listen, there's 2 different types of jingles. There's the full song that like gets you to buy the product. And then there's the one-line jingle. Okay. So like Nationwide is on your side would be a one-line versus I'm a Pepper from the Dr. Pepper ads would be a sole song, right? So we have these things going back to back. And I said, you know, an interesting fact, you can go to a JCPenney right now and go to the graphic tees section and find a Mountain Dew shirt and a Pepsi shirt. And essentially you're a walking advertisement for something that you enjoy. You're proclaiming to others around you, I love this beverage. But it used to be the only way you could get something like that was to collect like bottle top points or Pepsi points, things like that.
You got to be a super fan.
And now it's changed. And so wearing a Pepsi tee means less today than it used to because it showed that you really had to have like a lot of gumption to get it back in the day. And so then I thought, I wonder if they still honor Pepsi points. Like if you've got them. The one thing I wanted was Kool-Aid had a skateboard, but you would have had to buy the equivalent of like $1,000 worth of Kool-Aid, which is a lot when the packets are 50 cents a piece. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I just saved and saved and saved and saved and saved. And then one day I'm going to let my privilege show here. Our cleaning lady was cleaning out my bedroom and threw away these scraps of paper.
No.
And I probably had like 200 points at that available because I was the king of Kool-Aid stands as a kid.
Damn.
And that one cut me deep. And that also
That's like camel bucks for kids.
It was camel bucks for kids. It was the precursor, though, to me understanding that, like, okay, if I want to keep something private and hidden, I need to do better than, like, keeping it on, like, my bedside table all loose and stuff like that. So it probably really set me up for, like, having my first issue of Playboy, right? Making sure that it stays secret.
You know, by the time I started getting illicit materials, I was, like, immediately really good at hiding it. Yeah, immediately really, really good at hiding it. Because there's no way my parents would have let me have some of the stuff that I...
Right. You know, the part of like hiding anything, like whether you were going to be like, ooh, I'm going to hide some weed or whatever it was, you needed to have a good memory too.
Yeah.
Because have you ever been like, oh, it's time to take out my winter coat, and you open the winter coat and you're like, oh, Jesus, I didn't know I hid this in here. Like that was probably a good spot last fall, or last spring, but this is a horrible place to hide something.
Not for something smelly like that. No,
Yeah.
I mean, for sure you would know it was there. You have to put it in like a sealed mason jar or something and then wrap it in a bunch of bags to really hide that kind of a smell.
I found a $5 bill in the shorts I'm wearing today.
Oh, good for you,
In
buddy.
the back pocket. I've never been a back pocket guy.
You're having a $5 day, aren't you?
I used it to purchase that pounder-sized Pepsi and pounder Diet Coke.
I'm holding on to that for our second episode.
It's getting real sweaty.
We're recording 2 episodes today because tomorrow I get on the road and I drive down to Arkansas because I'm going to go see my new baby niece, Tegan Larson.
Have you ever wondered why it's Arkansas and not Arkansas?
I've never wondered that.
Or maybe Kansas should be just called Kansas?
Have you been to Arkansas before?
No.
Yeah. Well, if you were to go there, you'd be like, yeah, nothing makes sense.
Ding, 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 ding. One of those type of deals.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know, it's a swamp. It really, truly is a swamp. Everything is swampland. There's no basements. You kneel on the ground, you sink into the floor.
I imagine that everything you order automatically comes with extra mayonnaise.
I do know that their McDonald's there isn't nearly up to snuff compared to our 19th Avenue North one. Yeah. I get calls from my dad when he goes to that McDonald's. Last time I was there, he and I went to that McDonald's, and the guy taking our order in the drive-thru tried to sell us his dog.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get a home for this dog. And so since he was working the drive-thru, he was asking anyone who was coming through if they'd buy a dog.
Was it through the speaker or through the window?
It was through the window. So
did he have the dog with him?
No.
Like, see that dog tied up to the tree over there?
No, he said he had too many dogs at home. And then his wife was like, get rid of one of the dogs. And so he's like, okay, honey, when I go to work today, I'll just ask whoever drives through.
Now, was he offering it for free, or was he trying to get something out of it? Like,
oh, we didn't get to the point of price. He was like, are you guys interested in a dog? And we were like no. No, we're good. Ah, shoot. And he was pretty disappointed too, but we never got to the feeling I got was that we could have just taken the dog off his hands more than likely. Because I mean, we know when you have too many dogs and you want to get rid of one, that's a level of desperation where you're not looking for like if I'm a buyer, I'm not buying that guy's leftover dog, right? I'm going to go to a breeder and get some brand spanking new off the shelf, still in the factory packaging.
If you have too many dogs, it's not like you pick the best dog to be the one that's getting called.
You're going to get the shitty dog. I have at least 45 copies of Jurassic Park on VHS. If someone wants one of my copies, I'll give him one, but it's not going to be a factory sealed one. It's going to be one that's kind of beaten up a little bit.
And like on the cassette, it says Stutzman family.
Actually, probably says Lois and Lowell Albertson, because that is a Lois and Lowell Albertson released their tapes into the wild a few years ago because their tapes are all over this town. And I know that because they used their return address stickers to label all of their tapes. And so like I've seen so many in circulation. I've kind of considered trying to rebuild their library at some point, just to try to get all the team back together.
I know one person whose last name is Albertson. I wonder if she's related.
Possibly.
I'm going to find out.
Possibly.
You know, the sad thing is Lois and Lowell probably are no longer with us.
Probably no longer with us, but you know what? Their legacy lives on in thrift shops across the area.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
What I was trying to do in the intro was say that I was the 1 millionth blah, 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 blah fan of Ben Folds, and I'm with someone who's in the top 5 Ben Folds fans. Although I did not see you raise your hand when you said, "Who took my songwriting class during the pandemic, Tucker?"